Welcome to Data Forward, the podcast that keeps you ahead in the fast-evolving world of enterprise AI and data management. We bring you expert insights, actionable strategies, and the latest trends to help you stay on top. Ready to shape the future of data? Let's Data Forward.
Hi, I'm Ramon Chen. I'm the Chief Product Officer at Acceldata, and welcome to another episode of Data Forward. And I'm delighted to have with me today Jason Russler from Vast Data. Welcome, Jason.
Hi, glad to be here.
Excellent. Why don't you give a little bit of background about yourself, Jason, to kick things off?
Sure. Yeah, I mostly I work in strategic partnerships here at Vast Data, but I wear a lot of hats, and my background is pretty largely in storage. For the last whatever 20 years, I guess, if I want to say it out loud. More recently, a lot more heavily involved in analytics pipelines, analytics environments, and also as they pertain to AI environments in particular. So that's the short version of my trajectory and my role here. Yeah.
Fantastic. And then Vast, of course, one of the hottest companies on the planet. Congratulations on all your success. Well deserved.
Mm-hmm.
But today we're here to talk about modernization of Hadoop. Now, Hadoop, the toy elephant all those years ago, is still around, still alive and kicking, but very stealth in many organizations, but still very prevalent in regulated industries. And we're seeing a lot of that, but it's costing companies and large enterprises a lot of money to keep these things alive. And in this age of AI, there's things that can be done to better modernize Hadoop. And this is what we're going to be discussing today.
Mm-hmm.
So, Jason, so what does Vast Data do exactly? You have a suite of products, but as it pertains to helping companies modernize their Hadoop, where does Vast play?
So, Vast, it's interesting. Vast is very much a mono product. So, you buy it, you get one thing, right? It's not necessarily a portfolio, but it's big and it's singular, right, today. And so it does a lot of things, and flexibility is one of the nice things about it. But centrally speaking, around as it pertains to modernizing HDFS environments, right? When we say Hadoop, that's kind of what I think, right? When I hear Hadoop, because Hadoop's an old term. HDFS is what these things sit on. And for the past 10 years, organizations have been trying to communalize their storage away from HDFS, right? And so an S3 target is one of the things that Vast does, and Vast does very well, is provide that communal storage layer over S3A for HDFS environments. And it is, and I've seen this for a long time, it actually sort of realizes that ability to not have to sacrifice performance by moving to a communal storage in the form of S3A. So that's modernizing from Vast's perspective, right? Is getting S3A in there working seamlessly, just like it did with their HDFS environments on modern hardware with modern performance and decreasing the footprint, fractionally. Right?
And with that comes sort of the economics of not only modernization from the perspective of being able to start to handle AI-style workloads, but the ability to significantly reduce the amount of storage that's required.
Mm-hmm. So, and stepping back in terms of, what does Vast do? It was to economize S3, right? It was to economize any sort of flash storage, rather, not S3, sorry. And flash is expensive, especially when Vast entered the market. It was expensive. And so the goal was to get it in cost parity with spinning disk solutions, so that if you had to choose between two things, and they both cost roughly the same, you're going to go for the flash solution, right? And the way we've gotten those costs down on flash is through data reduction, data deduplication, erasure coding that works with very, very little overhead. And so it's never one thing. Like, people want the silver bullet that does the thing, the silver architecture, whatever, that are going to, create the product that you want. Vast had a different sort of idea. We're going to make the product that people need, and that's a hard problem, right? That's a lot of little things, and so that's basically what we've done to get these costs down. And so now you can fit in an eighth of the space with less than an eighth of the power consumption, something that is bigger than what you already had before, right? Or what you could even architect today on an HDFS.
Yeah, that really sounds like magic, right? If you were to tell me, you pay less and you get more for your money, that is a double win.
Well, I mean, triplication's hard, and that's the problem, right? It's triplication for HDFS, and also, I mean, it's an architecture that was designed for spinning solutions. I mean, it is the reference implementation for the Google white paper that came out in 2003 for shared nothing architecture, right? And it is the same architecture since then, right? And so it was just designed for different hardware, different stuff.
Yeah, so today, many, there's still tens of thousands of companies still using legacy Hadoop. They're licensed with proprietary Hadoop providers. Acceldata knows this because we offer an open source version of the Hadoop environments called Open Data Platform, and that's completely 100% free, so you don't have to pay for the Hadoop license anymore. But given those economics and the ability to swap object storage from Vast with HDFS, that's a massive economic, game-changing economic situation. We've seen sort of customers, joint customers of ours, literally cut their bill for what they're paying annually by 50% and simultaneously modernize. That's quite phenomenal.
Yes, I mean, when you're it's very easy to pat yourself on the back when you're comparing yourself to like the Hadoop architecture that's been there for a decade, because these things are tough to move out of this place. But you have to sort of make the comparison with what you can do today with what's out there. If they have to modernize, they have to do it. And so there's that, and this is very much my perspective, right? The Vast perspective, which is just gear on the floor, just raw crud that you need in order to in order to operate. And so yes, if we can get things fast and then marry it to Acceldata's products, be they free or not, for the value added portions of it, you have something that's very close to magic because they fit together extremely well. If we can accommodate an S3A target, we can create an S3A target that runs every bit as well as a modern HDFS solution, where you're now hampered by the data locality, the complexity, the triplication, all that other stuff. Then you have an almost magic solution. I mean, but for the time being, at any rate, Vast's been hugely successful exactly for that reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Incredibly successful. And the concept of moving compute to data instead of data to compute, that's really a big savings too, because of, moving data around is extremely costly, right? Because there's a tax on the network and the bandwidth and so forth. Tell us a little bit about how that is accomplished.
Well, I mean, you hear that said that we've gotten, the data gravity problem has gotten to the point where it's easier to bring the compute to the data than it is the other way around. Yeah. And I think that's somewhat true, right? I think that, that leads directly into discussing, cloud architectures and hybridizing cloud architectures, because it's kind of what you're talking about at that point. Your compute's going to be in the cloud. Your data is going to be probably maybe on premises for some older, for older types of, established large organizations. And they're the ones with the problem, right? Where do they put their compute, right?
Yeah.
And so that is something that we're seeing is trying to balance that difficulty, that problem, and there's a lot of opportunity in that, for Acceldata and for Vast.
Definitely. So indexing a little bit on sort of squeezing even more juice out of Hadoop than we've already described. So as you may know, because of our partnership, Acceldata has a product called Pulse, and it is a Hadoop observability platform that essentially identifies the efficiency of the nodes that are operating the Hadoop cluster, in many cases reducing the number of nodes that are required, both in terms of the efficiencies, delivered by VAST in terms of the object storage, but actually just also identifying inner data, right? Data that can be archived off. So not only are you removing the 3x replication problem, but you're also then taking data that's not often used or never used anymore, and then archiving that off as well. And that can only be accomplished through observing the behavior of the consumption and the analytics and the workloads running on the cluster itself.
Oh yeah, I mean, we're talking about Spark right now is what we're doing, and so I think that the vast job if you're dealing with, like, we deal in the cloud as well. We have cloud products, but our bread and butter is very much on premises private cloud environments. And one of the core problems you really got to solve there is you got to give customers all the bang for their buck. If they're going to buy this hardware, it needs to do as much as it possibly can.
That's
so
right.
Vast performance centric, and Pulse is the corollary to that. If you're going to have this hardware, you need to make the most out of it. And I can't. I mean, no, you've seen this constantly all the time. Where you walk in and someone's running a job that like runs 100% for 4 hours, and then the last 8 hours, 2 nodes are working, and that's it.
Exactly.
Stuff like that. Is that a lot of organizations, I'm shocked to see how much they've just lived with, right? And so. The ability to observe that and to be able to solve that problem. I mean, they didn't even buy anything, from a hardware perspective, and suddenly they've just tripled their performance. Right?
It's like found money, right? You all of a sudden, you clean your seat cushions, and there it is, right? Super interesting. Now that you brought it up in terms of cloud and on-prem. The trend that we've seen, both of us, is that, yes, people are shifting their workloads into the cloud for all of the reasons, that have been well documented. Companies are modernizing, going to cloud data warehouses, running their Spark workloads in modern architectures like lakehouses in the cloud. But there's also a interesting trend, some of it driven by AI, but also mainly due to cost. And the exact reason that you described, CapEx in the on-prem environment versus OpEx. So what we've heard is that CFOs are really seeing the cloud bills skyrocketing with no end in sight, a lot of unpredictability. And there are certain workloads, ETL, for example, Spark jobs that are just doing basic transformation that can be executed with no change on premise in a sort of private AI environment, which is another further benefit to protect important assets from the exposure that might be pertain to cloud security.
Sure. I mean, the cloud experiments been happened for close to 20 years now, not quite, but where the cloud first initiatives really came out. And so, of course, the attraction to it was exactly was the flexibility. I can change gears mid stream, and that's worth the cost. But people have been doing it for a long time now, and they have this bill, and they see that they've been doing it every year, and that this, in fact, is strategic to the organization, and there is no benefit of the flexibility of it. And so I need to tighten my belt, especially with AI coming in. That equals a lot of investment, but it also equals a lot more ask, right? And in terms of what to do with their money. And yeah, I mean, bringing home those things that are strategic, that aren't going to change, that no one's going to get fired, if you bring it home, because it's never going away, right? And we finally have the courage, right? As leaders to say, all right, enough's enough. This is not. The benefits of the flexibility here don't exist. Let's just bring it home and pay half as much.
Yeah, it's almost so the analogy somebody once mentioned to me was like a very expensive gym membership. And why not get a treadmill for yourself at home, right?
Yeah.
Have your own equipment, one-time payments, and then you're not.
Only if you're going to use it.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. That's true. But unless you have a personal trainer, not to expand the analogy a bit. But there's definitely something to this. I mean, we have a particular customer that has literally looked at and achieved even faster price performance in the on-prem environment compared to what they were paying on the sort of cloud elastic Spark workload side. Not to say that they're completely sort of shifting away, because there are certain tools for collaboration and the benefits of a cloud environment, but then pure and utter raw execution of Spark code can really be executed anywhere. And with the ability for, let's say, AI training workloads to be, associated with vast object stores in an on-prem environment, the economics are just so much better.
Yeah, I think that the holy grail is to be able to leverage SaaS services, which are complicated and user interfacing, and those high level interfaces that turn people into producers, right? Give them the tools to get as much as they can out of the data that they have. But that's a separate problem from running my gargantuan, ETL job, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the holy grail is to get these two things brought together, right? To be able to run that job in a seamless environment and to be able to take advantage of those higher level SaaS offerings, which are valuable, right? But the SaaS offerings have no incentive to really enable that, right?
Makes
So if
sense.
you can figure out how to do that, then you win.
Yeah. And then data sovereignty. This is something, we're in a very sort of geopolitical sensitive world these days. And not only is there a big shift back towards open source, but there also, this trend towards, well, I need to protect my assets. And, I can't put them in the cloud because that would essentially expose them to all sorts of security vulnerabilities. So, combination of three things, I think: private AI, which you already mentioned at the beginning. So, the second one being the cost efficiencies that we discussed. And then third, the ownership and the data sovereignty is also driving this trend.
Yeah, sovereign clouds are something that we see a lot of, right? And they are considered, national security assets at this point, but particularly around AI, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the fight. There are more banal, sort of cases that are more higher level. They're regulatory, right? The European Union has, a lot of regulations that really incentivize bringing things, in. And also exercising capabilities. I think that GDRP is a big thing. Where data removal, and so this is something the VAST can accommodate very well because it's a high up, high throughput type of system. You can make lots of changes to the system very rapidly, and that's a big advantage in that market. And that's somewhat related to the sovereign, subject. But yeah, I mean, that drives on premises, that drives our business as well. That is something that's very important to us.
Yeah, and then clearly, both from a technical architecture perspective, VAST and Acceldata go really well together, and jointly we have a massively efficient economic value proposition. Dare I call it a no-brainer, right? If you walk in and just tell the CFO and the CIO, hey, we're going to modernize your system, it's going to be faster and it's going to be more cost efficient, they would say that's huge, or they would say that's vast, right? Depending on the analogy was. So what are some what do people say when you present this value proposition? Give me some sort of anecdotes around. Do people look at you in disbelief and just go, wait a minute, you're kind of like giving me free money here?
Well, to some extent. I mean, I think that I like to be a little bit more hedged. Nothing's free. I think that there's, there's value in the system, and if there's value in the system, you're gonna charge for it. You're just gonna make sure everybody wins,
Yeah.
right? And so, if you tell someone that this thing is magic, they'll never believe you. I mean, that's just a practical thing, and it's ultimately true. I think VAST is an all flash environment. Flash is more expensive than a spinning disk still these days, and so it is incumbent upon us to actually provide value in the software to people. And I think that what really makes it click and makes things make sense is, of course, we're a very good marriage with analytics environments, particularly Acceldata. We have integrations that we made particularly for Acceldata.
That's right.
I think that beyond that, it's just a very flexible system. So because it's all flash, ultimately you can support so many other workloads. I mean, we have a tabular format in the system for dealing with HTAP type capabilities, hybrid operational transactional or analytical databases. We have an ability for a message bus. Yeah, there's a very high throughput message bus, which is getting so along with like NFS, and so that's actually, I mean, I haven't mentioned it yet, but that's one of VAST's biggest footprint is in the NeoCloud space. space, and that is for the big training environments and AI training environments. And in a sense, that's just NFS, right? It sounds sexier than it is. It's a high performance compute, and if you can have NFS and make things really fast and get the cost down, then that's your shoe-in, right? So no, people don't necessarily have problems believing it, right? once they kind of hear it all, it makes sense. We just found a sweet spot, and it worked.
Yeah, and then, well, seeing is believing, right? So we've been able to both together collaboratively create POCs that literally are almost a hot swap, right, of the existing legacy Hadoop systems with vast object storage and being able to prove it out. So seeing is believing. And so when somebody says prove it, we really have no problems delivering on that in a very, very rapid time frame. In fact, our go-to-market motion is just so incredibly efficient. I'm so impressed with our go-to-market teams because the light bulb goes on, we do a proof of concept, and then literally, within sort of a short space of time, we're able to transact with customers who benefit.
I can't say enough about how powerful that is, and I think that it's this. I think when you can come in with the people providing the data layer, the storage layer, and that is vast, and then you can come in with the people providing the compute and the analytics layer and that knowledge. It's less about it is about the products working well together, but it's even more about those two sales teams working together, because when you can get them in a room and you can answer all the questions at the same time definitively, as a single entity, it is super strong, right? It's never I got to get back to you, or they take care of that, or anything else. It's just everyone knows, at least with the knowledge that's in the room at the time, and that is what impresses me, is really the institutional knowledge that's coming from the two teams on an effort.
And really, it's about spreading the word, right? So we sponsored your conference, and you're sponsoring ours, which is Autonomous 26, which is coming on May 19th. And again, VAS will be a sponsor. Thank you for that. And we will be showcasing the combination of our technologies together, again, at that conference, as well as unveiling some new exciting capabilities. So I can't reveal yet on this podcast what's upcoming, but it's going to take this to the next level for sure. And I'm very, very excited for the May 19th date. One of the things that, to kind of round things off here, Jason, is let's talk a little bit about where the future is headed, right? So because the future is here and now in terms of what we've described. Many haven't seen the future yet because it's just a matter of us getting the word out and for our case studies to be published. But where do you see things, a year or two down the line, with workloads, agentic workloads and so forth? How do you view that?
In terms of, like I said, and at the risk of being myopic, we have what we're doing, right, as an organization. And what's really coming out right now that I think is the most exciting is around our message bus.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I mean, this is not directly Acceldata related, but it is related because this is a part of pipelines, and leveraging that message
Absolutely.
bus is highly relevant. Web scale, very large throughput opportunities that we're looking at that leverage this message bus, and the message bus per node per unit of hardware is capable of dealing out about twice as much throughput as our nearest competitor on with a third of the storage footprint. I mean, everything just is magic. It's incredible when you see it. Right?
Yeah.
And so that is really exciting to me. It's a microcosm. It's a little thing. It's not grand, industry, speaking, but it really is, just since I'm a technical junkie, super impressive. And I'm really excited about seeing it hit the world. And a part of that is the tabular format that backs it. So I think, as I mentioned, this is something that's Stack actually finally realizing and getting stuck. And this is the ability to have a topic of data stream and at an exceptionally large volume, and have it be made available to compute engines, Spark, for instance, through a data frame interface or an SQL interface, not through Spark streaming or anything like that. A direct access to that data as it lands is going to open up a lot of worms, a lot of cans of worms.
Perfect. And the connective tissue there, of course, to AI is the ability to handle both structured and unstructured workloads, right? Which is increasingly key. And then how this all comes together with Acceldata being involved in different perspectives in the cloud on premise is the data observability product that we also offer, which monitors pipelines, monitors freshness of data, as well as the quality and the business relevance and context of that data before it makes its way into these AI agents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I mean, AI is. I mean, it's the buzzword. It's everything there, but I mean, I think it's still absolutely true. It's the data that goes into it is most of the work, right?
Exactly.
And this is even true, and I mean, that's true in training. That's what they tell you, and that's absolutely true. But it's true in inference as well, because RAG and RAG-like workflows need good data in order to work correctly. And yes, yeah. So the more the AI kind of world sort of unfolds out in front of me, the more everything old is new again. I mean, I don't say that lightly, but these data pipelines have become more important, not less, in the context of AI.
100%, 100%. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on, and continued success with VAST. And it's just a thrill to be partnering with you guys. You're really taking the market by storm. Your insights are always, as ever, great. Really appreciate your partnership. You'll come on again sometime. We can talk again.
Anytime.
Thank you so much, Jason.
Welcome to Data Forward, the podcast that keeps you ahead in the fast-evolving world of enterprise AI and data management. We bring you expert insights, actionable strategies, and the latest trends to help you stay on top. Ready to shape the future of data? Let's Data Forward.